What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the Iron Chapel. We're here on our first episode of the podcast. I'm here with the Fit Ninja, Michelangelo, and Mo Panda, Mario. So we're going to start off with the topic of why all athletes should lift. And I think the main reason is because of resilience. So lifting as a whole, more body mass and more muscle mass is more durable than obviously less muscle mass. It prevents injury and it makes you more resilient, especially in contact sports and stuff like that. And Ninja is a fighter. What fighting specifically do you do?
Well,
and how does lifting help you with that?
To be honest, I do multiple martial arts. Like, I'm a fighter in general. So when it comes to lifting, it's very weird because I have to be good at moving with heavy weight, moving heavy people, but as well controlling my own weight. Yeah. So I like how Elite FTS put it. The skill for a specific sport will rise with raising an athlete's absolute strength. And that's completely true. Because in order for you to move somebody heavy, you need to have strength to move that person.
Yep.
So that's why lifting heavy has a big contribution to how strong you are in the room, how strong you are on the mat, how strong you are in the ring. And there are some pros and cons as well. A lot of martial artists would say that you shouldn't lift a bodybuilding split. You shouldn't lift heavy for martial arts. And that's understandable. That's been something in the world of martial arts for ages now, how they shouldn't lift. But I think that's not entirely true. Why? Because as far as I'm concerned, from my experience, I found a very big carryover with my training and lifting heavy and my sport in general. Yes, there's some pros and cons as well. The cons were that I did not know how to lift when I was younger. So not knowing how to lift hindered a lot of my ability to perform, ability to fight. And it's all has to do with the program, man. It has to do with the coach. Who's your coach? Who's programming you? Who's helping you? I'm very lucky to have Mario to help me a lot on how to really program. And I've had a bunch of luck with Elite FTS too.
Yeah.
They helped me a lot on how to really prioritize certain aspects of lifting to help my sport. Pretty much.
And that also has to do with mobility too. If you train mobility often, then you kind of wear away at the cons of lifting. Lifting, if you specifically, like you said, a bodybuilding or a powerlifting program, you're going to tighten up a lot because the muscles are working with heavy weights and they just naturally tighten up when they get bigger like that. But if you work on a good mobility regimen, for example, Blessin, I don't know how to pronounce his last name, but you guys know Blessin.
Yeah.
There's videos of him, he's absolutely massive, but there's videos of him doing insane mobility work that not even I can do at a quarter of his muscle mass. And it's just mobility can really make a difference with that too. And that comes into play with the durability too. As a fighter too, and wrestler, Mario's a wrestler too. And being in weird positions like that, wrestling and fighting, having more muscle mass prevents tears and injuries to the muscles, but also having good mobility also does that at the same time. So I feel like they go hand in hand with that.
Not only that, it's not even only that. It's all has to do also on what exercise you're choosing to do.
Yeah, exactly.
You don't want to be, for example, I said it before, a bodybuilding split. Yeah. Why would you have a martial art be doing a bodybuilding split or bodybuilding workouts? Yeah. There's no carryover. And in specific sports,
it does depend on what
it depends on what you do too and how you program it. Yeah. You'll have that you'll cycle that in of hypertrophy work pretty much. That's what I would call that.
Well, I think what Quinn said before is you see bodybuilders doing a lot of flexibility stuff now. What's it called? Jujimufu was one of the bigger advocates for it, but Jujimufu was more of a trickster and a flexibility guy.
100%.
But you saw in his buddy Antoine, I'm gonna butcher his last name. Sorry,
Antoine
man.
What?
Antoine Voya. I think it's French.
Sorry, Antoine. If you're watching this,
If you're watching, what's it called? He did Jujimufu's flexibility for his stage presence. And when he did it, he blew it away. He was absolutely insane. He was doing moves that people, like you said, at a quarter of their weight would be not even close to doing. And I think flexibility is a huge part, and bodybuilding is a huge part in fighting sports. I see in UFC, it's an all-around sport. You need everything from muscular endurance to muscular strength, everything from cardiovascular, and you need an all-around thing. So I think bodybuilding isn't particularly the number one thing to do for UFC, but it is definitely a huge part because it is something that is a part of the muscular endurance part of it.
That's breaking back into like programming.
Yeah,
you want to have a
exactly.
good coach to program specific cycles to make sure you're competing at your top level. If you take Olympic athletes, they're doing like hypertrophy work and all that like towards the beginning of their sets, or even during the building blocks of going on to sport specific, and then they go and compete, and around that time,
exactly.
Sport-specific things.
It has to do with what's that? It's the pyramid of specificity, and
the law of
you start
specificity.
at the bottom, starting with more variation in your training, like hypertrophy block, and then you move closer to more sport specific stuff, to the point where you're just getting in a season and you're only doing stuff related to your sport, and it has to do with that pyramid of specificity, which is like basically the holy grail of programming, if you think about it.
Yeah, so in Ross Sedgley's book, the first book that he has, The World's Fittest Book, that's what it's called, he goes over the pyramid, I believe like the first 6 chapters of like the pyramid of fitness, but he goes over kind of like the short-term spectrum of it, and he goes over kind of like the in-life versions of how it's done and how his adventures were. I think another huge person that brought it up was Dave Tate when he was talking about how Olympic athletes look 4 years in advance because that's how long their season is. They definitely have multiple cycles of macro and meso as well. So it's huge when you got to look at different types of athletes and how to put them together. That's why some coaches are well beyond some of the other ones.
And you can also use the law of like using like unassociated training, partially associated training, semi-associated, or directly associated. You can use that type of block to really propel your program.
And kind of related to what both of you were saying with that, and Mario mentioned Olympic lifting. I have a study here that studies the comparison of Olympic lifting versus traditional powerlifting in football players, and they took a very conditioned group of athletes, so they're already strong and everything, and put one group into a powerlifting where they trained squats as their weightlifting, and they trained another group in the clean. And this is a D3 team that they did this on, so they're pretty conditioned athletes compared to most people. And they found, let me find this, I can't see that small. They found that there was 18% greater improvement in one rep max in the squat with the powerlifting group. But what does a squat do for you when you're a football player? Not as much as, say, a vertical jump, which was one of the other things that they tested. And the Olympic lifters had much greater results in their increase in vertical jump and 40-yard sprint. And that's from Olympic lifting as opposed to squatting heavy weights. And I try to include Olympic lifting in some of my training because it makes you more explosive and sort of conditioned at the same time, because if you do, for example, every minute on the minute cleans, that gets exhausting. That's a good
That's
workout.
cardio right there.
Exactly.
The only reason why I wouldn't agree with that study is just because there's so many positions in football.
Yeah.
If you look at it, just the main two spots are offense and defense. That's 22 people, 11 on each side. And then you got to add the special teams depending on what
That is true.
So, I mean, I understand the study. I understand what it's getting at, but there's
It
just
could
so
have been
many
more optimized by position.
Yeah, if they would have put like all the linemen together and did that, or if they did like all the tight ends and wide receivers, something like that, they would have made it a little more specific to a position, then it would have been a lot better.
That's why you want to be specific.
There's
in
a
what you're training.
huge difference between training a safety and training left tackle. Like, there's so many different things that you got to worry about.
Yeah, that is true. But that's not to say that Olympic lifting could be part of their training. It just shouldn't be the main part of their training, because specific workouts for their training is more important than just the overall.
I think they
program.
should both be utilized in their own particular way.
Exactly,
I mean, for football players, they have a 4-month season. Most of the time it's 4 months, like of a particular game season. So they have 8 months where they train. So, I mean, using both of them, you can figure out where to put those out in between, depending on, like I said before, what position they have.
Yeah, and generally with programming, I would do like cleans and stuff like that as I'm approaching the season. I would do it a couple months out. I wouldn't do it just before the season, because it's not as specific to the sport. Most sports, when you're getting into more specific exercises within a month or two of the season, you want to do more like specifically like single leg exercises, the way I see it, because most sports, you're not standing there pushing with both legs at once.
Yeah.
And especially for me with hockey, I never have both feet on the ground at the same time unless I'm gliding somewhere, which isn't common.
Yeah.
So it's most of what you want to do as you're approaching the season is unilateral and not as much whole body moving at once. You want to do more. Also with hockey too is changing what you're doing with your upper body and lower body. So doing something with your lower body while you're doing something else with your upper body, because that's what hockey is. That's what a lot of sports is. Hockey is you have to move your feet without even thinking about it and be completely focused on what you're doing with your hands and the rest of the play.
But I think, not to undermine the statement or the thing there, but it's also to the sport, because I was watching for a lot of D1 basketball and a lot of like NBA basketball. The newer thing is working out before or after a game.
Yeah.
Or working out the day before a game, which is huge. That used to not be the thing. So now some of the sports, like basketball, there's a couple others, but they would work out like a regular workout before because it's just part of the training cycle.
Yeah. I can attend to that too, because that's what I did all last season when I was in season. I wouldn't do a full workout like you said. I would just do maybe like 2 sets of squats, and I would do some cleans or something like that. Basically just to get everything moving so I'm not
It's like a
stiff
primer.
and everything.
It's like a primer through a workout.
Exactly,
When you start a workout.
Just some light mobility work. And that also goes to one of the things with mobility work is you don't want to do it directly before training or before your sport, because then the muscles are lengthened and you don't have as much coordination, and that's...
Well, I don't agree too much with that. Reason why is that within my program, I would tire myself out a little and then do some mobility work, because I have to work 10 times harder. My body has to work 10 times harder because it's already tired. The muscles are already tired. So I feel like it's more effective for my part, for my sport, to work on, for example, I will do the sled, and then I would do jump squats, and I'll do single leg pistol squats on the box.
That's your mobility
and that will
work.
help me. That's my mobility work to me. Then again, my mobility work is a little different, because for mobility work for me, I would focus more on creating stability. And then within creating stability, I would transfer that to mobility.
And that's more, what you're doing is more dynamic mobility. What I usually do with my mobility is I do a lot more static mobility, just to have more length in muscles so that I'm not as stiff all the time. Because that's something that I've been finding recently after my recent program in the fall when I was on a big hypertrophy program, because I was getting real tight over time.
But then again, when you lengthen a muscle, when you stretch a muscle, you're allowing your muscle to create more muscle fibers.
That is true,
Work hard.
Exactly. Yeah. What I was saying earlier is I don't do that directly before a workout, because when you lengthen a muscle, it's all mental and has to do with coordination. When you lengthen a muscle, that's different contraction that your body has to do to get it where it wants to be. It's like pulling a rope as opposed to pulling a rubber band. Like if you pull rope, it directly translates, but if you pull a rubber band, it's got some lag to it and it's a little different.
I kind of feel like you're kind of mixing up like flexibility and mobility.
Yeah.
But let me ask you this.
Yeah,
do you think they're the same thing, or do you think
No, they're not the same thing. Flexibility has to do with mobility, but mobility doesn't have... I feel like flexibility is kind of like a subcategory under mobility.
There's different situations.
Yeah, because mobility has to do with...
And stability's up there too, like the three big things.
Stability, that is true.
Yeah, like when we're taking it through like a clinical style, when you're helping a client, like for example, injuries, those are the big 3 things you want to use. For example, you want to first work on stretching, flexibility. You want to soft tissue work. Let's say lats is tight. If your lats tight, it's making your shoulders internally rotate, because the internal rotator, your shoulders are going to hurt. So you want to loosen up that. Then after you create that flexibility is when you want to do mobility. I feel like mobility and stability is a kind of like weird intertwined thing. You can switch
I think
the
they
both.
all are a little bit.
Yeah, but I will always start with flexibility, then I would do mobility, and then stability. Because once you create that mobility in the shoulder, once you create that stretchable fibers, once the fibers are stretched, you want to create stability in that plane.
Exactly.
Now.
That is true.
Yeah, so to add on top of what you have flexibility. Well, it'd be mobility, flexibility, and the stability, right? So after you get done with those, I call that the pre-phase. And what the next phase would be is how you actually have to work out, right? So the way that everyone works out, no matter what you've been doing your whole life, you have to stabilize something, absorb force, produce force. That is exercising in a nutshell. Like, that is what you have to do. So if you don't have the stabilizing muscles, then how are you able to absorb something? How are you able to
produce something?
Produce something, right? Because if you don't have something, if you can't stabilize a exercise that you're doing, right, it gets out of the groove.
You'll be all over the place.
Yeah, you're all over the place. Or let's say you have a heavy load, and all of a sudden now you're out of a groove. Now you pop a pec.
Yeah.
Now you tear a quad.
Yeah.
Right.
Leaves you to injury.
Yeah. So to have flexibility, mobility, and to have stabilizing, I call that the pre-phase, and that's kind of what you have to work on within the first 2 weeks. But the best part about that is those become beginner games, and those become plastic. Right. So plastic means that it becomes something that you don't have to work on too much after like the first month. Doing it a little bit just before or like in the morning, stuff like that. That's when that will like come into play.
Well, I don't really agree with that completely. Reason why is that you wouldn't want to minimize that work. You want to keep the same amount of work, or maybe even do a little more. Because the more muscle you're creating, the more you have to try and stabilize that muscle.
I would think as you become more flexible and more mobile, you would want to just do enough to keep it. You want to find where that range is, because at the end of the day, it becomes energy expenditure.
Don't steal my word right there. At the end of the day.
At the end of the day, it becomes energy expenditure, right? So you don't want to spend 30 minutes when you don't have to doing something.
Well, that's why, like, if you, for example, when you take how the FDS do it, they do it in their a couple minutes into their warm up. And
that's what I'm saying. Like the first month and a half, it can be a half-hour process, and it should be, because that's where you're going to become the best, right? That's how you're going to get it. But once you have like that set mobility like limit where you believe you're good, or your coach says you're good, I think from there you just keep to where you're more comfortable at. That way your energy expenditure can go into the main compound movement or into the exercise of the day.
Well, I feel personally I will integrate it into the workouts itself, like towards the end, towards the beginning, because like when it comes to like mobility, flexibility, and stability, I call that what was the word I said?
I'm not getting rid of it. Prehab.
Prehab, yes. I call it prehab. Reason why is because like you want a prehab so you don't have to be rehabbing.
Yeah. You want a prehab so you don't have to rehab. But I'm not saying get rid of it.
Yeah.
I'm saying shorten it for the energy expenditure, or make it of a different routine. Yeah. So some people
put on your rest day. Some people do that too.
Yeah, you can put it on your rest day. Something else people do is put it at night. That way, when you're done working out, you can do it when you're already exhausted. That way, you don't have to worry about.
Well, that goes back to like when you're tired, you have to work 10 times harder to try and stabilize something. So that works out too.
That could also work, or you can add it in the morning. But I'm saying just as you have the beginner gains, maybe 5-6 weeks in. Yeah.
Oh, I love those times.
Yeah, once you get those, you can just incorporate it maybe 10 minutes. Like, you don't want to, it's not a time waste, but if you have something that you can do in 10 minutes and still get the same effect as you did 6 weeks ago, I'd rather do that than stick to something that's going to take so much time to do. Yeah. So you have FIT, which is frequency, intensity, time, type, and then there's a hidden E, which means enjoyment.
Take that out. Who needs enjoyment? Who needs enjoyment?
I think enjoyment's part of the best things, because compliance is a science. Sam Efferding says that a lot. And if you have someone that won't comply, then why even have them do it, right? You want to have adherence, and if they don't like doing something, they won't adhere to it. So the E really is like one of the bigger factors in it, because if they don't enjoy doing it, well, like the tedious stuff. Like, I mean, eventually you have to squat heavy, like
eventually you'll have to take out the E for maybe a month or so.
If you're not enjoying your training as a whole, then you got a problem.
But I mean, the other thing is too, it's like the E is also hidden, because the enjoyment's gonna come after you win. So, I mean,
but not only that,
suck it up now and call it a day.
It's kind of not only that the E is hidden. The E is also the reason why I don't like the E within the FIT is because the E can be so many other factors. Like enjoyment can be like how you feel that day, what happened at home, what happened outside the gym.
Yeah.
So many other things. So like, yes, you can be like 100% trying to give your all in a workout and try and make your client feel happy. But if they're just not having it that day, it's 10 times harder to try and really create that inside of them.
Yeah, but it's better to stay there. You don't want to take it out because
Yeah, obviously, but I'm just giving
one of the
a little.
biggest things as a trainer is that you want to listen to your client.
Mm-hmm.
So if I come in and I say, "Oh, let's do legs," and they're like, "I want to do chest today," if they already did legs or I know we can do legs next week, like I negotiate. So I'm like, all right, we can do chest today, but next time we're doing legs. And they're like, all right, cool. So then we have a negotiation. We do chest. They enjoy it, and we're like, okay, cool. But I want them to have the enjoyment factor because if I just say no, we're doing legs today.
Yeah.
And then I run them through a leg day.
Oh,
they're not gonna like it. They're not gonna. They're not gonna be happy.
I remember that too, because that used to be one of my things, like training wise in martial arts. Like I used to get a little tricep pump.
Love it.
JM press modified.
Yeah.
But
I don't know what this is called.
Guys, heads up! Don't do a Smith machine JM press at the gym.
People don't like it.
Yep.
It's very good for you, but people don't like it.
Exactly. Watch out for the Smith machine guy.
The creeper.
The creeper goes next to
not the creeper. He's not creeping. He's a reaper.
No, but you explode with rage.
Yeah, there you go.
Boom.
There you go.
Well, yeah, I've been to many like martial arts schools. For example, I had this martial arts school I went to the other day, and I hate how some coaches would just throw you in there without like talking to you, saying hi to you, even creating that like first one-to-one, like that first meeting,
connection,
that first connection. And that's the same thing as enjoyment, picking up on that. You also want to create that connection.
Yeah.
Like when you're training with your clients. When you have that connection, you can kind of play around with the E part. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
so when you already create your connection, they're like, oh, I don't feel like working out today. You can kind of like, you know what, you're doing it.
Yeah.
That's it. There's no, stop complaining. Let's
you
go.
know that.
But
you work the front desk, so you see some of the clients that come in. There's one that comes in the middle of the week that always kind of is not having a great day.
Oh,
but
yeah, I know what you're talking about.
What's it called? They love working out like in the middle. The beginning is so hard for them. But when I first started with them, they didn't like working out. They didn't like coming in. But now it's kind of like a fun thing to do.
Yeah.
They're like, oh, that's a cool thing to do.
It's that connection you want to build. And a lot of like coaches lack that. Like for example, when we were like some of our coaches that we had back in the day, like they were very particular.
Last couple years.
Exactly. They were very particular on creating that connection. Like there's a difference between real connection with someone and that connection because you just want them as an athlete. Yeah. And that ties into like the gym itself. Like you want to create genuine connection. Yeah. You don't want to create that connection where you just, all right, I'm doing this because I get a paycheck from this.
Yeah. Like, that's the worst way to go into it. There are some coaches that are like that, but I know one particular coach. There's a huge difference between liking the top athletes and liking the team. Like,
I know exactly what you're talking about.
One of my favorite coaches likes the team. Like I talk to him all the time. He's a great guy, but he likes the team. Like he's a team player.
I think he needs a shout out, but we can't say.
I'm not gonna say his name, but he's a great guy.
Shout out to the D coach, the coach.
The coach, Mr. Chief. Whoever watches this will know who I'm talking about.
Mr. Chief. Yeah.
Chief. But,
I didn't have him as a coach, and from all the stories that I've heard from him, I feel like he would have been a great coach, especially this guy.
Yeah.
He's just a funny guy. But the Chief would be. I wish I had him as a coach. I really do. Yeah. I think he'll be a great like combat coach too. Like just because how he talks to you, like he's that's a genuine coach. Yeah. That's a real coach.
He's a genuine guy.
Yeah, genuine guy.
And I mean, what was even better is that like he went through the college too. So like he walked on and he was just like he's not fresh out of college, but like he was still in like the mindset that we're all in, like just trying to get to the next part. And,
which that's how it should always be. Like sometimes
being a part of the team instead of just a head guy.
Mm-hmm. That's a big thing too. Like how you were saying, enjoying training. Like martial arts is one thing. Most of the training is like for yourself. There's not a lot of
that's
team aspect of it. I mean, there kind of is because you're sparring with each other. If that's what I know, it's different for every part of martial arts. But like if you're training with other people, yeah, it is kind of like a team aspect. But other sports like football, if you're training with a team, that could bring a whole nother level of enjoyment to it because you're with the people that you're going to be battling with on the field.
Yeah, if you have a team that is always fighting an adverse, which I've been on before, where the coaches are fighting, the team is fighting, everyone's fighting against each other. It's a hard spot to be in, especially if it's a team sport, because you're sitting there and you're like on edge on like what's gonna happen next.
Yeah.
Like you have no clue. You don't have a game plan. You have nothing. No one's on the same team, and you get a total 180 the next year where it's a total flip. Everyone's on the same page. Yeah. Everyone likes each other. Everyone is a cohesive unit, and everyone's friends.
Pretty much, you won't make it to higher. Like, if you want to be the best team, the top team, if you don't have a coach or that can create that atmosphere, you ain't gonna make it. No matter how good some guys are, no matter how hard you train, that if that aspect's not created right off the bat, you're gonna fall off the wagon.
Oh yeah.
You're not gonna be able to reach that top level, and that's what happened with a lot of my past coaches and a lot of teams that I've been in. We wanted to make it to such big heights, like we wanted to be there, but there was no team aspect. We won't make it there if we're not a team. Yeah. And that's something that lacked a lot in some of the teams I've been. And it's different when it comes now to martial arts in general. Like you said it yourself, like that one-on-one aspect. It's pretty much a one-dimensional sport, like wrestling.
It's a one-person sport, but it takes a whole team.
Oh yeah.
You can't. There's no sport that is a single person sport.
That's why when I get people on a team to train, like if I get one guy on a team to train with me, I'm like, yo, bring one of your buddies that you play with, because that can bring like a whole nother level of enjoyment for them for the training. Like not a lot of guys, not everyone likes lifting the best. It's not their favorite way to train. But if you have them bring one of their friends that they play with, and if they're at like a similar level of strength in the weight room, then it can keep them more driven and keep them coming back. And
it's a fun social thing to do too.
Yeah.
Like coming in, like when we trained last year, like in the spring, we were training for that like tiny little meet that we had. Here.
Oh, that was amazing.
It was more of a
social. And we're also improving at what we're doing.
Yeah. It was just us just hanging out and having a good time and doing our thing.
Ups and downs.
Oh yeah, there's definitely days where you come in and you're like, what the heck is going on? Like,
but then there's days that you come in, like this happened to you the other day. Like you came in here, not the other day, it was a while back towards the meet. You came in here and it was a good deadlift day. You got the tights and everything. You like ripped your pants. You're like, let's go, bomb! Yeah. Like, and was pissed off.
I'm trying to figure out which time this was.
Yeah, but it was just not a good deadlift day. You were just speeding up to your warm ups. You were just playing around. You said it yourself. It wasn't a good warm up. I did not warm up good. And we talked to you like. Having those,
it keeps you driven.
Having people to get you going.
You had a bad day, but if you train with people, then you're like, all right, tomorrow's a new day. Let's have a good day.
That day I was just mentally a kid. I was just like chilling out. I was hanging out with you guys. I mean, sped through my warm ups and I shouldn't have. And I was like, this is not okay now. It's like this sucks.
But it's all right. We talked about it. Having those people there to communicate that too. To tell them, hey, this is what happened. You have them that they can input different perspectives.
But the best part about that is like learning about it and learning from the mistake is like, okay, when you speed through warm-ups, it's not going to work. The other thing is like moving on. It's like
moving on.
I think I came back 4 days later.
Except some people don't never move on.
I don't know what you're talking about, but
I don't know. Yeah. Those deadlifts the other day, they're not seem too happy, and he still did not move on.
I was having a good squat day to translate over there.
After the Chinese food?
Yeah. After that.
Mind you, the Chinese food brought it down.
Dude, the squat was solid it was flying 405. Yeah. And then bench was medium. It was all right. It stabilized. Yeah. Mike don't want to talk about that. But then the deadlifts just did not happen. It was not there.
No, but...
what's it called? It's something that I got to train on more is the deadlifts because I feel pretty confident in the squat now still. So I want to start deadlifting and benching at least twice a week.
Well, that breaks out the thing that a lot of people say that your squat is going to contribute to your deadlift. Like that.
Yeah. Vice versa. Yeah, it's gonna be both. I see the deadlift more contributing to the squat though.
Yeah, that's what I feel
drive.
like.
More hip
Much
drive.
more hip drive.
Yeah.
No, but it all depends too, because it depends on how you deadlift and how you squat too. Because like if we're talking about stances and how do you squat, how do you deadlift, how you like for example, your deadlift is kind of different than how I deadlift.
Yeah.
Like I'm very. If you ever seen me deadlift, I'm like my hips. It's like a hip thrust. I'm doing it, and he's hip thrusting, but it's like weird to explain how you're deadlifting.
Because yours is wider than mine, so you have a straighter leg. I use a little more knee bend.
Yeah.
So I kind
more
of
leg drive.
Yeah, I kind of use a wide stance, but you have a wide stance.
He uses I feel like you use more legs, and I use my ability to just bring my hip socket, just extend it, just bring it through.
Yeah, you have more. Yours is more of a hip drive. His is more legs.
Well, that's why he feeds. I don't know what he feeds those things, but at least I got good hip drive.
There you go. Yeah. I can squat.
Well, yeah, that's the thing. That's the thing. You can squat more, but don't you worry, guys.
We'll be back on this topic.
I'm catching up.
Yeah. Sorry.
I'm catching up. Well, back to the topic of the lifting. So, let's talk about how certain sports can contribute to other sports.
So carryover. I think just as a general thing, every sport carries over to every other sport. It does not matter.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter.
The ability to perform.
You can pick two sports. And there will be a way that they carry over.
Mm-hmm.
It can be curling and badminton. There's definitely.
Wait, what's that sweeping game?
Curling.
All right. Well,
that's curling. That's curling. Oh.
Let's make it a bit more
a little bit more.
So
let's bring it down more.
Yeah, not as wide range that you're gonna have trouble finding. Yeah. So let's think about
just do every sport and you'll be the best athlete. Every sport you can find, just do it.
Yeah, before this, there's gonna be. I know you're probably gonna have a lot of your hockey buddies watch this, and we're probably gonna have a lot of our people watch this. Mm-hmm. If you're in high school or college, play multiple sports. If you're in high school. Play 3 sports. If you don't
you play your main sport year round,
yes,
unlike me, for example,
you did your main sport year round, right?
Yeah,
and I did too.
Yours year round, but me, I should have been playing a 3rd sport. I only did 2.
But you were lifting in the spring.
Yeah, I was lifting in the spring and the summer.
Yeah.
And then once football came around, I was back.
I mean, we all do multiple sports. Like lifting how we do it is a sport.
Yeah. But I'm saying.
I don't know if you're competing in that, but
in high school, you should be a multi-sport athlete no matter what, unless you guys were year round in the same sport, and that's.
But we were both also lifting the entire time.
You gotta be careful too, though, when you say that, because. Yes, you want to be doing multiple sports, but you got to understand the recovery, the injury prone, how much that can be affected. For example, football and wrestling. What you're going to say.
I'm a football guy, so wrestling's going to help my conditioning. But if you're a wrestler, your main sport is wrestling, you should not go on a football field unless you enjoy football, because the amount of no one else will get injured besides him.
Yeah.
That is true, because
the one guy that will get injured is this guy. It's it's the worst thing ever, because you don't want to see someone that's in their sport, and then they go to another sport that they really just don't need to be there for, get injured.
And it also has to do with the time frame. If you're in season, with wrestling, there's no reason you should be playing football during that season. That's just asking for an injury.
Yeah, they're 2 different seasons, but
But if you say you were playing something intramural or something during your wrestling season, there's no reason you should, unless it's if football is your main season and you want to do football in every season, then go for it, and you could do wrestling on the side. But if wrestling is your main season, there's no reason that you should be doing.
That's why you want to be yes, you want to be doing multiple sports, but you want to be prioritized. You got to prioritize how you're training for them.
Yeah, you got to pick what you're doing. But I think track is a big one. I think every athlete.
Track that's my biggest regret. We talked about this the other day.
I wish I did track in high school.
Conditioning, explosiveness, strength, it's everything.
Because my ankles wouldn't be in pain if I were to learn how to run and use them.
But I mean, you would have enjoyed the throwing part of it too, because that's a huge technical thing that you.
As long as I don't have to catch anything, I'm fine.
No, it's all throwing.
Whoops! And then I heard that those balls they're hard. They're
so in high school they're 12 pounds.
Yeah.
And in I believe the Olympics it's 16 or 18.
Yeah. So imagine having to catch that.
Yeah, you don't catch that.
Imagine.
Trying to catch that would be a nightmare.
Go far.
Well, to bring it to the topic of like sports, playing multiple sports, I was going to say this earlier, but like if you have someone that does wrestling and you have someone you have someone that's a powerlifter and you have someone that's a couch potato, doesn't do any sports. Obviously the powerlifter is going to be better at football than the couch potato is.
You're wrong, actually, because couch potato is part of the sport. It's part of it.
No, I'm talking about football.
I'm about to say, because powerlifting is all about lifting heavy weights,
and then
eating a ton of food,
minutes.
and sleeping for 5 minutes.
I mean, I brought my chair.
Oh yeah, powerlifting
It's a
chair.
traveling chair.
Yeah, but like if you have someone that doesn't do any sports and you have someone that's a powerlifter, obviously the powerlifter is going to be better at football than the couch potatoes because
but then that also
they're more active all the time, and it's just that idea of being active. Obviously, someone.
If you're an athlete, you're an athlete.
Exactly.
If you're able to perform, you will perform. Now it only ties down to skill
and that's what
and
Mary
specific
was saying
training.
earlier. Yep. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, but like picking what I was going with this question was, I really want to explain how like lifting in general, like for example, my powerlifting sport, how it helped me in my martial arts. Because I really want to blow out of the waters the aspect of what people think that, you know what, you shouldn't lift heavy. You wouldn't want to squat like 600 pounds and then go fight someone. I'm like, what are you talking about?
Yeah. Well,
I would love to squat 600 pounds and freaking fight someone. It's kind of like a CrossFit, like squatting and running, but either way, like...
Yeah. But there shouldn't, Dave Tate said this. He said there's a boundary.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you shouldn't, if you plateau at 500, like, there are, like, D1 football players that are, like, they hit 600. Why would you need to squat any more than that besides ego?
Unless that's your sport.
Like, unless that's your sport.
It's a multi-sport,
What's it called? In martial arts, if you're capping off at 405 and that's, like, to get to 500, you would have to, like, specifically train that, like, 3 times a week, twice a week. Yeah. It's not worth it. Stay at 405,
and
get the reps, do stuff like that.
That's picking up more sport specific, but what I was going with is that, yes, powerlifting has a big carryover to my sport. That's why I powerlift. That's why I like martial arts too. It has a big carryover because having the absolute strength, like the quote I said in the beginning, I'm able to use that absolute strength to punch somebody, and they ain't gonna like that punch that's coming to them.
No,
like they're gonna be unhappy.
Yeah, as opposed to someone that doesn't lift.
Exactly. They're gonna have a punch. The punch might be strong because a punch always has to do with technique as well. Yeah. But having that absolute strength behind
muscles.
it.
Technique with strength is better than technique.
Bring out the ultra instinct right there.
But I mean, if you're all strength with no technique, you're gonna get beat.
You're done.
You see it all the time at like wrestling or UFC. It's like if someone's more technical than you, it doesn't matter how strong you are.
Yeah, exactly.
You can get beat, but
it's having the best of both worlds.
Yeah, but when you mix technique with strength, you're
unstoppable,
a dominating athlete.
I also have a study here that has to do with that too. An article. That's my mom's car. It's body composition and VO2 max, which for people that don't know what VO2 max is, it's basically how much oxygen your body can process through breathing, which is something that all athletes should work on. Basically, going out and running, or one of the biggest examples for VO2 max for training it is the bike. There's multiple studies where people train it using the bike to analyze its efficiency. So this, what I highlighted here, it says the results of the study indicate that exceptional weight-trained athletes are more improved on their body composition and their VO2 max and their working capacity through weightlifting, which VO2 max comes surprisingly from weightlifting because it's not an endurance sport unless you're training in high rep ranges. But I mean, we can all.
I'd like to say this. It's the funny joke on the Tabletop podcast. It literally depends.
Yeah, it depends a lot.
It depends. Like what?
We can all.
Shout out Dave Tate.
Buy that shirt.
It depends. Buy the shirt.
It depends.
Buy the smelling salts.
It depends.
Buy everything
We can all like attest to it that even if you're doing like 2 or 3 reps at heavy weight, you're having trouble breathing after that set. Like it definitely
that domino pressure is
exactly.
It's crazy.
And it definitely does increase your endurance.
Well, I feel like there's a little difference though, because there's a difference between. I feel like I don't know if there's a study on this, but there's a difference between VO2 max when it comes to one rep, breath, and being out of breath, and VO2 max continuously.
Yeah, and that
well,
has to
it's
do with
muscular
rate,
endurance.
Yeah,
versus
muscular endurance
that has
versus
to do
muscle
with
strength.
rate of
Yes.
perceived and rate of
Yeah,
perceived
yeah.
Yeah,
But
but there's
exertion
no.
too.
I don't know if there's any like specific like term for it or different type of VO2 max that you would consider that would be for like strength training and then cardio, like when you're running.
Well, yeah. So we learned this in our health and fitness
Yeah.
classes. It's you have something between like the push-up test,
Mm.
or you can change it to a bench press. Like in the NFL, they have 225 on the bench
Yeah,
for as
for
many
max
reps.
reps.
Yeah, but then you also have your other one, which is like vertical jump, and then you
Yes.
also have stuff like the 12-minute mile or like
Yeah.
the bike test. The
These
step
all
test.
tested
They're
test
all
for
different.
VO2.
They're VO2, but depending on your strength too, because the bench press in the NFL during the combine, if you don't have enough cardiovascular to get more than 10 reps, then you're not getting more than 10
And
reps.
that's
but
a
you
big
need the
thing.
strength to do 225. So it's you got to get the mix.
You got to
of both
find it.
worlds.
That's the whole part of the training and programming your training towards your season is finding a balance between all that stuff by the
Yeah.
time you're in season.
Yeah.
This is why I love. I've learned this now, and I don't know why I didn't learn this in the beginning. The importance of cycling, cycling different workouts.
having
Not the cycle you think. Not like D-ball and all, but the actual cycling of programs.
Having different phases to your training.
I said that I made that mistake once at Vokes. I said, "Yeah, you guys got to learn how to cycle." And then everyone looked at me like, "Cycle what? Cycle what?" I'm like,
Mike, you're looking
"Programs."
pretty big these days. What
Yeah,
are you
right?
cycling, bro?
Yeah, but the other thing is too, it's called leapfrogging. You don't want to
Yeah.
cycle so much.
Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
that's true.
Cycles are anywhere from 3 to 6 to a month.
Yeah,
Like 3 to 6 weeks. It could be a month. It could be 2 months.
2 months. Yeah,
Like if you look at the Olympics, it could be a year. Like
yeah.
cycles
And that's
are
with having
insane.
phases to your
Exactly.
training and not different training cycles. Like a lot of people will do many different. Like people will go through different programs.
I'm fine with week cycles.
Yeah. people will
Just
go
kidding.
through. Yeah, got to make that clear. So
Yeah, just
people are
kidding, guys.
Tracking it down. But it's like people will go through multiple different programs in a month or within a couple months. But it's better to program your training so that you're in different phases.
Yeah,
Like
and program
how
to you,
Exactly.
tailored to you.
Yeah, exactly. And having phases.
Sport specific.
Exactly.
for you.
And that is to do back to the beginning where we talked about the pyramid of specificity. You want to start less specific than you end off with, and you can have that specificity
But that also-
in different phases. Like
Quote,
each,
it depends.
Yeah, you can have it because it depends. Ready? It's
everything
like
depends. but-
height, weight, experience, age, gender, like
What's your
sport, experience.
What are your strong points? What are your
Yeah.
weak
strong
points?
point, weak, injuries,
Injuries.
pre-diagnosis, yeah, ankle, what is it called? Health conditions.
Yeah,
like,
health
I forgot what
condition.
they're called. But yeah, health conditions, like everything. Where you are, like in here, you're
Yeah.
gonna have a lot different
Exactly.
training cycle than your.
That's a
at the gym.
big,
Yeah.
and another big part is the atmosphere that you're in, and not only that, the
100%.
altitude that you're
Oh,
in.
yeah.
Because if you're
Yeah.
going back to VO2 max,
You mean like atmosphere?
You're
the
training
atmosphere,
actual-
no, both.
No, no,
like
atmosphere.
No, you're training here.
Yeah.
We're at sea level. The water is right
Exactly,
out there. Right
that's
outside
what
the
I'm
door.
gonna
You
make
go
the
to
point.
Brian Shaw's gym, you can't breathe.
Exactly, you
No,
can't breathe
yeah,
because
yeah, breathe.
there's different types of there's
Yeah.
oxygen that's going to be in your body. It's different,
Yeah.
and
And
that's
humidity,
what
heat.
humidity.
I've
heat.
experienced that too, pretty
Yeah.
a lot too, because I
Hiking.
live here at sea level. All the training I've ever done in my life is at sea level.
Yeah.
So I have
And then
the
when you
most
go up in the
possible-
mountains and start running,
and I've gone
you're gonna
exactly.
cry.
I've gone hiking in Yellowstone on a almost 10, actually in Death Valley, outside of Death Valley, but on that
Yeah.
trip I was on a hike that was over 10,000 feet elevation,
Yeah.
and it's like, oh my god,
Well, let's
you
go a
can't
little-
breathe. You take like 10 steps
Yeah.
up an incline, you can't breathe.
Well, let's go a little science. So the points of that, you see a lot of athletes like in the Olympics do that a lot. They will go to high altitudes or where
Yeah.
you see people wear those masks.
Yeah.
And the reason is to create those red blood cells. When you have less oxygen coming in, your body needs to create more red blood cells to
Yeah.
create more oxygen to take what it needs. And if those red blood cells more are created, you're able to recover better. There's more nutrients going to the muscle, more blood flow in general.
Yeah.
So that's why they will do that. Even though they'll die in like a matter of like, I don't even know how long, I forgot, but they'll die in like
Yeah.
this
Yeah,
pretty
the
much.
other thing is too is that like if you're in a combat sport or an endurance sport, if you're wearing that, it's a lot easier if you take it off and start running.
Oh,
yeah.
Right? If you run a mile with it on and then you take it off, and like for
it increases intensity.
Yeah, it increases. It's a different part of the fit principle.
Yeah. And if you guys want to just get that same effect, just squat heavy.
Yeah.
Pretty much. Squat heavy and you'll be winded.
Yeah.
No,
I forgot
not
who
the
did
same
it,
way,
but
but
I forgot who did this, but it's a track athlete from a very long time ago. I forgot his name, but what he would do is he would squat really heavy and then run a lap.
And that's CrossFit.
Yeah.
No, that's not CrossFit.
No,
that's
that's
not
CrossFit.
CrossFit's a lot different.
So-
CrossFit is a sport.
let's not go in that
you
realm
can-
of.
Well,
let's not poke the bear here.
Well, let's poke it just a little. So, let's poke it
It's
just
hurting.
a little.
It's hurting.
But you guys can't not say that CrossFitters have some crazy work capacities.
Yeah, but it's
Like the ability
CrossFit
to work.
athletes. There's
Like,
a difference between CrossFit athletes and people that go to CrossFit gyms.
Yeah,
just to be
but
healthy.
the sport
Because
itself, I feel like,
the
is
sport
big.
itself is incredible.
Yeah, the
I
sport
mean,
itself
is a workout.
It's
yeah,
insane.
it's a workout. And what it is
Yeah.
that it's
It's
just
a lot different than a game or an athletic event.
yeah, but it still improves. Like these people are ability to work is crazy. Like you gotta understand that. Like we're poking the bear a little, but the sport itself of CrossFit, I wouldn't say. I mean, I'm not gonna go there, but either way, the sport itself is the ability to work. That's what I feel.
Like going and blaming people for everything, then you have no place in that sport.
Yeah, if
You
you're
gotta
blaming them for
and
everything.
especially if you're blaming them for your mistakes. Like if you make a mistake and can't own up to it, like that's what I'm trying to get at. Like
Okay.
if you don't own up to your own mistakes, then you have no business being in sports in general.
But that's
team
commitment.
Sports.
Are you committed enough to own up to it? Are you
Exactly.
committed enough to push through it?
And
Are
do you have the
yeah.
discipline, and are you down to earth enough?
Yeah.
Like there's
Like-
some people that are just like living in
Ego.
la la land in their
Yeah,
sport.
the
Like
ego.
they don't.
And it
exactly,
goes
ego.
and then that also ties into like life as well. Like there are life things that will stop you to try and achieve something. But if you can just try and give it your all,
Yeah.
like for example for me, like I should have wrestled, and I say this all the time. I would have been a better wrestler if I wrestled during the off season, summer wrestling, going to the practices.
Yeah.
And there were times that yes, I'm going to tell the truth right now that there were times I was given excuses. And those excuses I could have easily fixed by, hey, you know what? This sports matters to me most. I don't really need this job right now. I was just in there for the money because I mean, at the time I didn't need the money, but now I do. But but either way, like at that time where I didn't need the money, I should have, you know what, focused on what I wanted to do. And I did that my senior year. I told my boss, I'm like, look, man, I want to wrestle this year. I want to give it my all. And sadly, I didn't get the opportunities because how everything was worked for, and I wouldn't even get the opportunities because of other aspects. But I still gave it my all, and that's something I should have done.
Yeah.
Are you committed? Are you going to give it your all? Are you going to allow to opinionate on your training as well? Because yes, you can have a sucky coach, and you got to be committed enough to tell your coach, yo, you suck. This is his good thing. He told his coach, you suck. You have to change this. And then me, for example,
I've done it
I
so
would
many
even
times. I do not recommend doing that. Please do not do it to all of it.
Be respectful.
Yes,
That's the thing.
Yeah.
I've done it respectfully.
But that's the best
one
way to
thing.
do it.
I've set for one coach, but me and him are good friends, so it was not.
Yeah,
it wasn't
definitely
anything.
don't.
Yeah,
Don't
Don't go
have
up
to
to your
wait.
coach
Don't be
and
like,
curse
you
him out.
suck.
Yeah.
Well, that's just saying him to elaborate like more, give him more
Yeah.
oomph to it.
The
But in general,
the other thing is too. It's like if you're gonna tell them they suck, tell them why. And like that was the one thing in
Exactly.
football. It's like we had a game plan, and I didn't agree with it, and like this is why. Like I show them, like
Exactly.
because
Yeah.
you're not gonna be.
But
credible.
once I get ignored, it's like, all right,
Exactly.
I'm not gonna do anything
Yeah.
else. I'm not gonna like sit here and cry about it. It's like we're gonna lose.
And if you
call
have
it
a good coach, they'll recognize that you know the
They'll-
sport, and they'll take your.
Yeah.
They'll
Well,
take
that's in
your,
everything
your
too.
advice.
Like you
as
wouldn't.
long as there's no ego there.
Yeah,
That
exactly.
was the problem.
Uh-huh.
And that's the bad part because if you care about the sport, you'll listen to your athletes because to be honest with you, you can be training an athlete so much and you can like know everything about lifting in general. But if your athlete, the athlete knows his own body.
The coach
Exactly.
isn't on the field.
Yeah, his coach isn't
Exactly.
on the
The
field.
coach
Yeah.
is not on the field.
Yeah.
But again,
But then also the
respectfully,
athlete's got to do
coaches,
the other way.
Yeah, the coaches know what they're doing.
Yeah.
And the
I mean,
coaches see
sometimes-
it from the outside. They see
Yeah.
it from.
I'm not saying.
they're also human.
Yeah,
like
exactly,
you can't.
yeah, everyone
sometimes
makes
they're just
mistakes.
having a bad day or a week,
Yeah.
and they just don't have the right mindset, or Or they're getting burnt out, and you just gotta kind of relax and just take it.
A good coach will understand that and listen to his teammates or teammates technically, because that's something I've been thinking about a lot. How like a lot of people say, "Oh, he's a coach." Oh my God, coach, athlete, two different people. But I feel like
they're a team.
They're teammates. You shouldn't call your athletes athletes. You should call them your teammates.
Yeah, that is true.
You all
that
are
is
a
a
team.
good point.
But it is a 90-10. All right, 90% you should be listening.
There's
to
a
them.
percentage. Yeah.
10%. All right, you can change it up. That's 10, but it's only 10%.
Yeah.
It's very tiny. It's not a lot.
That's why it depends.
It depends.
It depends. In situation. Don't go to your coach and say what I said.
You suck. Yes.
You suck. I was just saying
do
that.
not say that at all. I've never said that.
Yeah.
I might have, but I've never said that.
What I meant to say is that if you have an input, you have to be constructive, and you gotta tell why, because you're not gonna be credible.
Be
enough.
nice about it.
Yeah.
Be nice about it.
And tell why.
Explain. Don't go up to him and just be a jerk and have your ego up. You got to say it with respect and with a game plan that you think might work.
Right. And this goes into court. Like, you're not going to go into a court being a lawyer and say, "This is how I feel," and not explain why. Like you're not. They're going to be like, "All right,
my evidence.
My evidence. The evidence says
that is true.
This is red.
This is red.
Well, that's not red.
No. This is red. Because I said so.
Bro, this is not red either.
That's purple, dude. I don't know what you're talking about. You gotta, but the reason is because there's blue, and that's why.
Do you have anything else on your paper before we finish up?
No, I kind of.
bring up a couple things.
Anything else?
Oh well, I already actually explained everything I had on my paper. The only thing I had towards the end was like certain exercises. Like I said, you want to be specific in your sport. So you will want to, you want to implement squat, bench, deadlift, but especially in the sport of deadlifting, the sport of powerlifting, I don't just powerlift because I'm also a martial artist. So I integrate both sports, and that's something you got to find.
Same with all of us.
It's same with everything. Like, if you're an athlete and you want to do two sports, you have to find a style of training that integrate. And I found that niche. Like, for example, in Elite FTS, if you click on one of their articles, and this is a good article, by the way, guys, that you guys should check out on Elite FTS. It's basically How to Make Comeback Athletes Strong by Chad Farah. We'll probably put that in the link if you don't mind.
I can.
That's a great article on athletes and how to fight, pretty much, and fight in training. One of the biggest things they had in the workouts was like the sled, like GPP stuff. They would have like medicine ball and tosses. They would have a lot of things like that towards the end of your workout. They would have very sport specific stuff. For example, for me, I would love doing the rolling tricep presses. Like, it's like such a minor thing. Like, it's basically like a skull crusher, but you're rolling up and you're pressing forward, and you can also do the opposite, rolling down. But that's such a great motion to do, especially when you're punching. So it's finding that little contribution where you have that carryover to your sport.
And even in powerlifting alone, like when I was training my deadlift, my worst part of my deadlift is the bottom part. Like once I get off the floor, I'm fine, but getting it off the floor is the hardest part. So what I did is I implemented Olympic weightlifting to help with that, because cleans power off the floor helped a lot with that. So
I saw Dr. Mike pop up.
I was just gonna say, like, when it comes to like from the floor, there's a lot of like big.
There's so many things.
Many things you can do, like especially with the weird thing about like rack pulls and deficits. Like those two things, like a lot of people say a deficit will help you, like I think up the top.
Deficits are off
but
the floor.
But deficits off the floor.
Rack pulls are.
A lot of people will say up the top though. I've heard that a lot.
I think
they're monkeys.
I think you're confused.
No, kid you not.
No, I could see
they're monkeys.
I could see people not.
Yeah,
like,
people think it's
being confused.
Reason why is because when you're pulling from that distance, it's helping you work harder to come up. That's why people are saying it's from the top.
But with the rack pull, you can overload at the top and work with more weight for your lockout. So.
Exactly. But a lot of people also would say that, it has its place. But I kind of like that idea of having the deficit help you at the top. Reason why? You have to work 10 times harder.
I think a deficit
go
helps with
all the way.
The deficit helps a lot more
with everything.
It's an all around, because the deadlift is an all body movement.
Yeah.
But it's off the floor. Like There's no arguing
Yeah.
that. Like there's no arguing.
But then
that.
that's also to say a rack pull can help you with the whole range of the deadlift
Yeah,
because
exactly.
you can put more weight on
Exactly,
it.
yeah.
But it's not going to help.
But
you
it's
as
not that
much
full
as-
distance.
It's not going to help you off the floor as
Yeah,
much as a.
Yeah.
A rack pull's
But
not
that's
gonna
why
help
you'll
you on the
do.
bottom.
That's why you'll do a pad pull. Or I mean, I call it plate pulls because I put the bar on top of the plates.
Yeah.
So I could plate pulls instead of rack pulls. You can do that as well. We're not doing rack pulls.
Wait,
Yeah,
what
it's
do
just,
you do?
it's
Plate
just
pulls.
a
So
low.
I put the plate instead of having like the pads or having like actual like blocks. I put the plates to have that distance from the ground.
Oh, an elevated deadlift.
And
Yeah, so it's like
but
a
I'm saying
2-inch elevated.
the
He's
reason why
on
I'm
a
saying
rack pull.
yeah, but I'm saying the reason why I'm saying plate pull is because I'm pulling off plates.
Mm-hmm.
And when you do a rack pull, you're pulling off the rack. You get what I mean? That's what I'm saying.
It's an
there.
elevated deadlift.
Well, then the rack pull is an
that way-
elevated deadlift
No, it's not.
because it's
a rack
elevated.
No, it's a rack pull.
But it's elevated.
No, no.
It's still
sorry,
it's
sorry,
on the ground.
I'm doing a box deadlift. What is that? It's a deficit deadlift.
No, that's a box pull. You're pulling from something.
All right, we could make another. We could do another podcast on controversial topics
Nah, let's.
for next
I feel
episode.
personally, I feel the next podcast should be about coaching.
Could be, yeah.
Yeah.
We covered a lot about coaching.
Yeah, we
today,
talked
too.
that we were.
Coaches, trainers, and
Yeah, we should do that
Yeah.
because that's a big topic that I would love to see more in other YouTubers that would love to do that.
Mhm.
I want to see more of that, and I feel like we should talk about that.
So yeah, if this video gets a lot of coverage on all the social media platforms, then we'll come back and we can make this a monthly thing where we post on the Iron Chapel YouTube
probably do it every
Could
other
do.
week.
every other week, whatever we choose to do the time frame of, and next episode could be coaching and training and all that stuff. So that's where we're ended off today. We're an hour into
With
the
the new ring.
video, but it'll be much shorter when
Rain
we post it.
sponsor.
But anything else to finish off?
I want Rain to sponsor us.
Yeah, rain. We need the sherbet flavored.
Yes.
Look, sherbet flavored rain.
Yes,
Look me up.
please.
Looking for everywhere.
We will shout out. And shout out to Elite FTS, Dave Tate too, because we
Yeah,
wanna
lots
be-
of information.
Yeah, they
That's
have a lot of
also-
information. Not only
Yeah.
them, a lot of people like the World's Fittest book is a great book.
Ross Edgley,
Eddie
Hall,
Eddie
Brian
Hall.
Shaw, literally
Yeah.
everyone that we've learned off of.
Exactly.
Like,
Oh,
basically.
Everyone.
What's it called?
Jordan
Shout out
Shallows,
your
everyone.
Instagram.
Oh yeah, my Instagram. Follow me, the Fit Ninja 7. I post a lot of workouts there, and I'm gonna be starting to post out a lot of like tips and stuff from my own tips, cause, yeah, I'm ready to do that.
Yeah, mine's
So-
Mo Training and Fitness. Probably start posting again mid-March, and then probably keep it up there for weekly.
Yes, also.
So
Sweet.
Pass me a sauce.
All right, everyone. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you again next time.
peace.
Thanks everybody for watching this video. Now this video was a big struggle to edit and film. The camera that I'm holding right now lost all of its footage just randomly. So I really do appreciate everyone watching this video. If you like it, leave a like, subscribe, and we'll make more like this. Also, many clips from this video will be posted on other socials too.